Hit record. Thank you. And good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this fourth meeting of the Small Grant Program, RAC. I think this will also be the last meeting, unless something unexpected happens between now and July. But we think we'll be able to work through any of the existing issues at this meeting today. So just to start things off, we'll just do a quick round of introductions. My name is Eric Hartstein, OWEB Senior Policy Coordinator, and I'll just go around and call on people as I see you on the screen, starting with Kathy.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kathy Leopold. I am OWEB's Small Grant Program Coordinator.
Thanks, Kathy. Let's go next to Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen Stutzman. I am the SWCD program lead at the Oregon Department of Agriculture, and nice quilt behind you, Kathy.
Welcome, Karen. Let's go with Kelly.
Good morning, I'm Kelly Timchak. I'm the coordinator for the Lower Rogue Watershed Council down here in Gold Beach, Oregon, and part of the Curry Watersheds Partnership.
Great, thanks, Kelly. Chris.
I'm Chris Shadell. I'm with the Hood River Soil and Water Conservation District.
Welcome, Chris. We just had 4 Ks in a row, so I'm going to break that up a little bit and go to Jordan.
Morning, everyone. Jordan Anderson. I'm a resource conservationist with the SWCD.
Great. Welcome, Jordan. Rachel.
Hi, everyone. Rachel Thompson. I am the post-fire recovery specialist at OWEB.
Thanks, Rachel. Let's go to Annalise.
I am the natural resources specialist with Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde.
Welcome. Let's go next to Ivy.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Ivy Clark Henry. I'm an admin specialist with OWEB.
Nicole.
Good morning, everyone. Hawaii Watershed Council Coordinator and Adrian.
All right, welcome, Nicole. Let's go, Eric.
Good morning, everybody. Eric Williams. I'm the Restoration Grant Program Manager at OWEB.
Thanks, Eric. Nori.
My name is Roy Wright, and I'm the Office Manager for the Gillum County Soil and Water Conservation District.
Great, welcome, Nori. And Cheryl. I know you're not on the RAC, but you're here, so why don't you just say hi?
Good morning. Yes, I'm listening in. Cheryl McInnes, Executive Director of the Clackamas River Basin Council. I'm enjoying all the updates that you're discussing. Thanks.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, did I miss anybody? Okay, not seeing anybody. Okay, so today we're going to go through the all of the proposed rule revisions to the small grant program. We have it in the agenda that we'll schedule some breaks in there. I don't know if we'll need them or not. You know, we have 3 hours scheduled. I'm thinking we're probably going to be out a little bit earlier than that, but we'll see how it goes. We have a discussion in the agenda for fiscal impacts of the proposed rules. We have public comment scheduled. We had the one written comment that I emailed out to you all yesterday, and we'll see if anybody wants to provide verbal comments. And then we'll wrap things up and provide what the next steps will be for these small grant rules. So any questions on the agenda? Okay. Seeing none. Rachel, would you mind popping up the rules?
Yeah. Is that large enough text for everyone to see?
Maybe a little bit bigger.
Bigger. better?
Yeah. Okay, so what we thought we would do is just go through everything. I know some of this we've touched on at either the first or second meeting, so it might have been a little bit of time in the past, but we wanted to give people an opportunity to raise any questions, concerns that maybe have popped up on any of the proposed rule revisions here. So going through, starting at the top, we just changed section F to eligible grant applicants and landowners and operators, removing just the references to councils, tribes, and SWCDs. Moving down into definitions, we removed the cap of $15,000 to small grants, and then provide some clarifications on the small grant team agreement and removed language around program administration, small grant fiscal agent. And this is all either housekeeping or in mind of making sure that we're able to provide grants to the small grant teams to administer the activities of the team over a biennium. Okay, so moving into section 0020. So here's the first change that we've made since the last RAC meeting. So this gets at the small grant team grant. We add this language that only one application to administer a small grant program within that small grant area will be considered by OWEB, and that applications shall include affirmation or documentation of non-response from all other councils, districts, and tribes in the small grant area. And this is just to ensure we're receiving one grant application from each team to administer the small grant program per biennium. We don't want to see competing applications. Does that make sense? Okay, seen some nodding heads. Okay, so we removed in section 3 here the requirement that all representatives of the team need to have met OWEB reporting obligations for before OWEB enters into a grant agreement for the small grant team administrative grant. And here we're getting into in 4, working with OWEB small grant teams will be inviting other eligible applicants in the small grant area to participate on the team.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah, Karen, go ahead.
In that section where we're inviting other applicants, so you're not gonna put a cap on that or anything? Like how many people can be on the team?
No.
Okay.
No. But this will be, remember, this will be working with OWEB to determine who is an eligible applicant within that small grant team area. So in some locations, it's going to be probably a pretty narrow universe, and some locations it might be a little bit larger, but we don't want to, I think, put a cap on that at this point. Okay. Actually, Rachel, if you want to scroll up a little bit, just want to make sure that people see that. Yeah, in the bottom of section 4, that we're saying that the OWEB board at the beginning of each biennium will set the maximum amount of each small grant, and that the maximum amount will not be less than 15,000. Okay. Most of this is kind of housekeeping. Um, '14 is mostly housekeeping, updating it to kind of the current process. As well as 15, the new 15. In the new 17, we're just making clear that the small grant teams are not responsible for providing the summary biennial report to the Soil and Water Conservation Commission. That's something that OWEB can send over. I'll pause here maybe for a second, Rachel, make sure that there's no questions or concerns in this section.
Hey, apologies. I don't want to backtrack, but I just want to make sure that there's no reason at all that we would want to name a minimum for the amount that small grants can award. I mean, is there any reason that the board would go and say, well, we don't actually have to award them anything? That's just being full devil's advocate, but is there any reason why we've got a maximum up to whatever the board would suggest, but is there any reason why we would need to leave a minimum in there?
Like a minimum per?
Yeah, like this says grants up to 15,000, but now it's like grants up to, I apologize. I know you were just in this section, but yeah, do we need to say that? I'm not suggesting that we do. I'm just putting the question out there.
Yeah. Well, what do people think?
Meaning like a minimum of what you would write a grant for, or?
No, I just mean like, now they have maximum as it stands right at the time, you can have a small grant up to $15,000, right? And so we had them remove. Yeah, I guess that's just that bit, because that's not necessarily saying the like 100,000 per biennium. This is just specific to each grant. Okay.
Yeah. So you're talking about the spending, like actually having something in the spending plan for a small grant?
Yeah, where it's like there's a minimum of, but I think this is fine. Sorry, I'm going to retract what I said.
No, thank you, Kelly. That's good to think about.
Yeah.
And that will be a conversation for the board for an next spending plan discussion, that if we're entertaining providing grants to the teams, that would sort of argue for an increase in the amount rather than taking that amount from the current 2.8 million. So I think that's where we're at as staff in terms of what we would recommend. But that'll be happening about a year from now when we're talking about the next spending plan with the board.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay. Rachel, if you don't mind moving down to section 0030. Okay. This is where we remove the eligible applicants to the small grant program as just being tribes, councils, and districts, and thus opening it up to the full range of OWEB eligible grant applicants. And making sure that the latest edition of technical guidance is referenced in the small grants applications. And we heard you in a previous RAC meeting and removed the what was section 6 here about applicant, landowner, fiscal agent sign the application, and teams may write a separate cooperative agreement where multiple landowners are involved. Teams will keep the original cooperative landowner agreement on file, and all signatories plus OWEB will be provided copies, and that project funds will not be released until OWEB has a signed copy of the cooperative landowner agreement. Moving down to 0040. A lot of kind of cleanup housekeeping here. Two, we have removing again the reference to 15,000. Referring to indirect costs rather than fiscal administration expenses. And removing language about change in fiscal agents. And okay, a little bit more housekeeping, and then we get into the last sentence in the new number 7, which was OWEB funding may not be used as match for a small grant project funded by OWEB. So we suggest removing this sentence, primarily because it's redundant of our Division 5 rules, which states that OWEB grants cannot be used as match for other OWEB grants, so it does not need to be reflected here as well. We know that there have been rule waivers that have been attached to operating capacity grants that will allow for time spent on kind of regular activities to be used as kind of that entity's match, in-kind match for a project. So I'll just pause there, see if there's any questions.
So what did we find out as far as small grants, because I think, yeah, last time Kathy was gonna look, but it again was my understanding that capacity grants could be used as match. Not that we're using, that's not like our full match. We've been using a little bit of it as like project management for
Yeah.
small grants. So if we had some clarity on that, just so I can live in the white instead of the gray.
Yeah, living in the white instead of the gray is a ideal place to be, I think, Kelly. Sometimes we do spend a fair amount of time in the gray.
Yeah, gray's not so bad either. I
Gray's
don't
not so
mind the
bad.
gray.
Yeah.
I just, now that I've put it out in the world, I've said this out loud, so I'm like, okay, God, now I'm on the hook.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where we know we've attached rule waivers to the operating capacity grants to allow them to allow the operating capacity grants to be used as match in the past for other OEB grants. And we know that happens too, that people are using their time to develop projects and implement. So we're in the gray a little bit. Okay.
Eric, can you, sorry, say again where you were saying this is written somewhere else? Is it, where else is it written?
Yeah, so thanks, Chris. The OEB's Division 5 rules, which are the OEB grant program, which is the umbrella rule set that all other divisions kind of tier off of, including the small grant rules. Match is defined in the Division 5 grant program rules, and in that definition is match does not include other OEB grants.
I wonder,
No, go ahead.
I mean, should probably look there, but I wonder, is there any benefit to keeping it in just as like, probably if we're looking to, you know, see, you know, a quick check on what the small grant rules are. You know, this would probably be the first place I would look. Is there?
So, yes, I mean, this is sort of a philosophical question when it comes to kind of the rules, and I'm trying really hard to get people to look at the Division 5 rules first, and then go to the particular grant program rules that they're interested in. Because otherwise we have some redundancies, right?
Right, or incompleteness.
Yeah. Or there's some places where, yeah, you're referencing the Division 5 rules and this other rule set, but you're not doing it in another place. So, you know, what gives, OEB? So
can you put a sentence in there that says see Division 5 rules?
You know, what we might be able to do is in the top, at the very top of the rules, the small grant program, the 00, and I don't know, Rachel, if you need to go all the way up, but if you do, folks, close your eyes. We can say somewhere here that these are supplemental to the Division 5. Would that satisfy?
that.
I think it would be worth referencing it somewhere. Because I don't know, yeah.
A lot of districts start out with just small grants, right? And so as you're learning, before you get into the bigger types of grants, it's a good place.
Yeah, I agree with that, Karen.
Okay. Yeah, that's great feedback. Kathy.
Yeah, I was going to note that we do reference the Division 5, but in small grant program rule, but not until we get down to the eligible small grant projects, way down in 0050. So I agree, it might be nice to have it a little earlier.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Okay. We have a little bit more housekeeping in the next few edits. Really, I think the remainder of this section here. That one I just pause, see if there's any questions, concerns. Okay. Next, we'll get into the eligible small grant projects, where we spend a fair amount of time at the last meeting. Okay, so we added back the and quality into G here. We're talking about water. And if we go down to, yeah, the urban impact reductions next. That language that's right after the big A there, that was a note from the last meeting. So that's not going to actually be reflected in the rules themselves. So we'll be removing that. Because what we did is we added a B here to the stormwater runoff treatments, which is in addition to installing them, we would allow for revegetating those projects where the vegetation has exceeded its design life. We talked a little bit about that at the last meeting. I'll pause and see if there's any reflections there. Okay, I got thumbs up, couple thumbs up. Okay, we removed the create off-channel flood storage or restore floodplain reconnection element and moved it over to riparian process and function because we don't see it as necessarily something that needs to be in the urban impact reduction, where it may more broadly fit under riparian process and function. Next, there was a fair amount of support for keeping the employ integrated pest management language as eligible in the small grant rules. So we just wanted to clarify a little bit by making sure that the integrated pest management was in service to or in conjunction with a restoration project. So we made that change throughout every place you see the IPM. And there you see in the riparian process and function we added the big D, restore floodplain reconnection. Okay. So moving down to, go down to little f and big B. We removed the irrigation runoff piece here as it is described now in the section G, the water quantity and quality irrigation efficiency section. Okay, so let's actually move down to that little g, the water quantity, quality, irrigation efficiency. So we provided, again, a little bit more information around recharge groundwater. We talked this through at the last meeting, added a language about permanent components of drip or sprinkler systems, and then wanted to get some feedback on this last couple of sentences here on the big B. So we say that landowner agreements with irrigation efficiency projects require affirmation that the landowner agrees that water conserved with the project shall remain in stream. For projects involving improvement of irrigation practices for the benefit of water quality, the application shall describe how sediment is entering a water body along with sediment load calculation. So this is new language, and we're really curious about hearing from you all on this language, particularly around how irrigation districts may play a role in that first sentence, and if you have any feedback there. Yeah, Nicole.
Yeah, so I think the language should probably say something about, if they're under a district, they should have some sort of affirmation from that district or clearance, or I don't even know how to word it because I'm at a loss for words today for some reason. But something that, from the irrigation district that says, yeah, this is a viable option for this particular property or this particular water right. Because I worry that we might get into a situation where it just is not even feasible for them to put water in stream, given the infrastructure or the diversion structure that the district currently has. And again, like we had discussed, it's such a small amount on some of these projects that it might just fall below that margin of error, measurement error, and so it just wouldn't even be a thing. So I don't know, I feel like the district would have to have some sort of form or something in there on that.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Nicole. So would language that says require affirmation that the landowner or irrigation district agrees? Would that,
yeah,
would that
yeah,
work?
yeah, the landowner and irrigation district, yeah, there'd have to be something, I think, in there.
So maybe and or,
Yeah.
as much as I don't like using and or.
And then on the quality part, I am worried about just saddling us up to sediment, because we have sediment, we have nutrients and bacteria that are really kind of our water quality limiting factors, and sediment and nutrients, particularly phosphorus, are kind of hand in hand. So I'm I'm wondering, do we, just silo it into sediment, or maybe include sediment, nutrients, and bacteria? I think it's going to be tough to do a load calculation on bacteria, but definitely can for that sediment and the nutrients piece. Typically on our load calculations, we're doing sediment, nitrogen, and phos. So yeah, I guess that's kind of my 2 cents on that.
Okay. I think we could describe how sediments, nutrients, what was the other word you used there, Nicole?
Yeah, sediment, nutrient, and bacteria.
And bacteria.
Yeah, because
So-
bacteria is kind of a big thing, especially in these pasture, like these pasture crop situations where we have some livestock, use. We see a big flush of bacteria, especially in the spring, like right with that initial irrigation. OSU's done quite a few studies on that, and so it is a thing, but I just don't know how we capture the load reduction on it, if that's going to be a key piece, or if just the load reduction of the sediment and nutrients is good enough. I don't know. That's the question.
So yeah, thanks for that clarification, Nicole. So we would have the application shall describe how sediment, nutrients, and bacteria is entering a water body, along with sediment and nutrients load calculations. Because I'm hearing you say that bacteria is not something that would be included in the load calculation. Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. How do folks feel about that edit? So, Rachel, I think we're going to go along with sediment and nutrient load calculations. And then remove, that. Yep. Okay. Nicole and others that may do these types of projects, how does that sound to you?
It sounds good to me. I wonder, so is OWEB going to come up with like a standard load calculations that they want to see? Or is this going to be kind of like what we've been, like I said, I do it a lot with the Idaho DEQ. And so I don't know if it's going to be a specific way you want to see a load calculation or how it's done. I guess that would be a question for me.
Okay. My thoughts are that we don't necessarily want to be prescriptive at OWEB on how applicants are doing those sediment and nutrient load calculations, but I want to check in with my colleagues here on that to see if there's consensus here at OWEB.
Yeah, I agree, Eric, that we don't want to be too prescriptive here. I think really it's getting the concept across as we're just trying to understand the project and its watershed setting, and the relative significance of a particular water quality issue that a project is addressing in the context of its watershed. And I think if we started getting prescriptive on how to do the load calculations, that would probably be overly burdensome. And it's really most important that when teams get applications, they can understand, how a project fits into the bigger water quality picture in that watershed.
Great, thanks, Eric. Okay, Chris, you've had your hand up for quite some time. Thank you for your patience. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just I don't have much to add on the load calculations because we don't do those kind of projects, but I did want to say, yeah, thank you guys. I feel like your edits were really receptive to the feedback that we gave. So I really appreciate that and feel heard. Yeah, I agree that I think in our district most all the irrigation water is delivered via irrigation district. And so for kind of like affirmation of conserved water being left in stream, I think it makes sense to have either the landowner or an irrigation district be able to sign that form. The thing I do have a question on that has been a question that's gone round and round for 10 years now is kind of the sentence that says must measurably reduce. I kind of want clarification from you all on what it means to measurably reduce. Like, we have kind of a calculator that we use for the old outdated system to the new system that, yeah, utilizes acreage, pressure, nozzles, irrigation spacing and set times. And so we do kind of an apples to apples comparison of old system to new system. But we've kind of not argued for 10 years, but discussed for 10 years whether that measurably means flow meter. And so I really feel like I need some clarification, because my 2 cents on that is the flow meter is performative and not a useful tool, and doesn't actually give you any meaningful information a lot of the time. So I guess, yeah, my question directly is, must measurably, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a good question, Chris. Let's see if any of my colleagues have any thoughts on that.
Well, Kathy, please do elaborate. But I think when we look at this, it's really the capability to measure, and it does not have to be a flow meter if there's some other way to measure the reduction in the diversion of water. I think flow meters have become commonplace as sort of a default way to measure. That's clear, easy. Well, I say easy, it adds cost to a project. But I think, Chris, you're right that it can be performative in that sometimes they're bought and who knows if they're ever read or used. And that's not what we want to promote. It really is about passing the straight face test that doing this project is actually going to reduce the draw on the public resource, which is the volume of water available. Kathy, other thoughts on that?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. First of all, it's not, we don't specifically say flow meters are required.
Yeah.
It's some form of measuring. And then, yeah, just what Eric said, to show or prove up that we have spent these funds wisely.
So the way, yeah, I would interpret that is, I mean, for me, I think like with the calculator we use and submit with every application of like, this is what the old system's putting on now, and this, if managed exactly the same way, is what the new system will put on. And, if those numbers don't, don't flow, they don't show a measure, like water conserved and, you know, the system wasn't designed to apply less water, we wouldn't even write a grant. I think, yeah, one of the issues with flow meters, which I kind of tried to describe last time, maybe didn't do so eloquently, is that, you know, a lot of times these projects are only upgrading a block of an orchard where like the incoming pipe serves a greater orchard area. And so what the flow meter captures is not like an isolated upgraded system. So I guess, yeah, like, I mean, to me, I feel like the measurably reduce the calculator would suffice. And so I guess I'm putting out there that that's how we're going to operate going forward. There's not going to be flow meters in my projects anymore. Don't cancel them.
I think I'm hearing some flexibility here, Chris,
Okay.
on that.
All right. Grants were submitted.
Okay. Kelly.
All right, I'm coming in with the caveat that I have never worked on an irrigation project and I don't typically do those in the Lower Rogue either. My pitch is just for consistency among all these eligible types. So I would honestly say take the word measurably out, just say must reduce, and I would not put the word calculations on the end of that sentence either. I would just say along with sediment and nutrient loads. And I'm only voting for this because there's no other project type really where it's this prescriptive of like you have to show the before and after difference of something. Like road drainage, you don't have to have data before that says it was putting out this much sediment and then install a trap afterwards and say, now we've got this much less sediment. So it's just, I'm going to vote for a little bit of a like, you know, these small grants again are like a really net positive. They're landowner introductions. They're getting people into our programs. Like Chris said, like, I'm not going to spend my time writing these small grants because they are a pain in the ass. No offense. Love them to death. But I'm not going to write a grant that's not going to like do something or make a measurable change, I guess. So I don't know. I guess I would just vote for like, this is the only one within all these that has like these very specific, yeah, sort of requirements for showing, actually physically showing an improvement. So anyway, that's all I got to say. Like I said, I don't have much else to say on it because I don't do irrigation projects, but I'm not also asking you to put prescriptive measures on the rest of the pieces either, just to be clear.
I would echo that sentiment, but I will not look a gift horse in the mouth on this.
Okay. Thanks, Kelly. Thank you, Chris. Nicole.
Yeah, I agree with Kelly. Absolutely. And one thing about, I will go back with what Chris was talking about, the measurably reduce. I've always kind of thought that was strange because a lot of our water is diverted like miles away from where it's actually being applied. So for me to really actually measurably, reduce the diversion of water, that's going to happen clear up on the Owyhee somewhere. So that's been a little bit tricky, but I will say, like, we have some piping projects, like ditch piping projects that might be a section of ditch. And we can't necessarily do the whole ditch because it's different land ownerships, but one particular piece of ditch might be really terrible for erosion and it's pretty gnarly, if it's on a hillside or something. And I think we've talked about it before, but I can't put a flow meter on just a chunk of pipe. So I guess we just kind of need that flexibility in there on some of these. So
Okay. Thanks, Nicole. Do you see the language that has been revised here as providing that flexibility for you with the type of projects that you're doing?
Sorry, who are you asking?
Nicole, just to follow up.
sorry.
Yeah, do you see this revised language as providing that flexibility?
I think so. I'm like Chris, that measurably reduce at the diversion of water. It's still like that sticky point where it's like, okay, how nitty gritty is that? Like how much, I guess that, because it could be pretty broad. And I, like I said, I did like Kelly's suggestion of maybe just leaving calculations off and just leaving it as load, period. That kind of gives it a little bit more.
We have another hand up, Eric, too.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. Go ahead, Jordan, and then Nori.
Well, this is just a quick like wordsmithing thing for the water quality portion. I know ODA describes waste entering the waterways. So you could say the application should describe how waste, and then you could describe all the different types of waste that is entering the water body. Just a different word to add.
So does that edit reflect what you're referencing there, Jordan?
I guess so. And I just was talking about water quality rules with people. So ODA says waste says soil, manure, fertilizer, or any other substance that could pollute the waterway.
Okay, so it's a little more broad. That might capture something that nutrients. Might not, although I think we want to probably keep it in there too, Rachel. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, I would not read waste to include sediment.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, so sediment, nutrients, bacteria, and waste. Or waste.
Yeah, I think a lot of landowners wouldn't see it that way, but the way ODA sees it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thanks for that. Nori.
Yeah, I just wanted to give my 2 cents. We don't do actually many irrigation efficiency projects or anything. We have very limited irrigation out here. However, we've just kind of directed some of our focus to one of the watersheds that has irrigation. But after reading this, I won't lie to you, it seems kind of scary. Like, I don't know if we're going to do it with small grants. I think that I kind of mirror there seems to be a lot of details with it. And I'm sure it's like that for a reason, but it seems incredibly complicated with the proof of it. So as far as Chris, good job for doing irrigation efficiency projects with small grants. This seems hard. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents. Is there's definitely a lot of particulars in it. So.
Okay.
I'd be happy to share our applications or like any of our resources if that would be useful.
That'd be awesome. Just because it is that's a little bit for a large grant, maybe, right? Like for something big, $200,000-$300,000. Like, yes, but for something smaller with a smaller portion, it seems like it would be tricky to do that. So, so yeah, I might be in touch and pick your brain if we decide to do it with small grants. So thank you.
Great. Okay, other comments, questions on this? Okay. I know that, I'll just say that we've, I think, made some changes from the last RAC meeting, which I think were pretty well received. I understand that there's still probably a little bit of concern here about this particular set of project types and how it might be a little bit different with the other project types, eligible project types. But I think we want to keep this language for now. And I think we're in a pretty good spot here that balances kind of where the concerns that we've heard and you know, making sure that we're getting that watershed benefit for these types of projects. So I know, you know, might not meet everybody's desire here, but I think we're close. So I really appreciate the robust conversation that's been had on these project types over the last couple of meetings here. So thank you.
Yeah, I feel like it's I think it's a fair compromise. I think it's okay to like be like, yep, this isn't just buying on-farm infrastructure. This project saves water and here's how. And as long as there's flexibility on what that straight face test is, I think this is really reasonable.
Great. Thanks.
I agree. I agree. I mean, we do pretty much mostly, I'd say 90% of our projects are water quality improvement, and it's not as daunting as it sounds. You know, water runs downhill, and that's the I guess the simplest way to say it, and it carries contaminants to our streams and our waterways. And so yeah, I agree. I think this is a great compromise.
Great. Thanks, Nicole. And thank you, Chris. Let's go down. So Rachel, I think the private road impact reduction was inadvertently struck there. But yeah. Okay, I think we're good. Let's go to ineligible small grant projects. Nothing new for this meeting in this section. And the last couple of sections here, one change that we made is the rule states and the periodic review and evaluation of the small grant program that once a biennium and in consultation with representatives of the Soil and Water Conservation Commission, tribes, and small grant teams, OEB will review annual reports submitted by small grant teams and evaluate the need for program improvements and administrative rule changes. We thought that was a bit much, a little prescriptive when it came to this program. So we took out that first part of the sentence and just as OEB will review annual reports and evaluate the need for program improvements and rule changes.
Sounds good.
Okay. And that is pretty much it for the proposed rule revisions for the small grant program. One other thing I do want to add, but before I do that, I'll see if there's any questions on any of these sections, any burning last minute thoughts, anything that's kept you up at night. Okay, so not hearing, seeing any hands up. We will make the change at the top that references the Division 5 rules. We did some language changing in the eligible grants, sort of eligible project types. But I don't think there was a whole lot else that we made changes on here today. One thing that I do want to make sure is absolutely clear is that when we go to the board with these draft rules, and I'll get to the kind of that timeline here in a bit, but the effective date of these rules, we're going to ask that it is July 1st, 2025, which is the start of the biennium. Okay, so we have a few other items left on the agenda. I think we can move through them relatively quickly, but I also want to just do a check with folks to see how we're doing, if we want to do a 10-minute break or just power through. So what's your preference? I'm seeing 1 power through, 2 power to, okay. Okay. Well, let's power through then. So fiscal and economic impact of proposed rules. So when we do file a notice for rulemaking with the Secretary of State's office, we are asked about the fiscal and economic impact of the proposed rules. So in particular, we're asked about the cost of compliance for state agencies, local governments, and members of the public, and if they may be economically affected by the proposed rules. And so these are considerations that really apply when it comes to regulatory agencies when they're doing rulemaking, probably less so for non-regulatory grant programs. But that said, you know, we do want to check with the RAC to make sure that anything that we're proposing you know, will not have a negative economic impact. So the proposed rule revisions do both broaden the applicant pool for the small grant program and also potentially the composition of the small grant teams. And we have acknowledged and discussed that both of these will likely involve some additional work for the small grant teams. And we think that allowing for grants to include funding to administer the small grant teams should compensate for that additional work. But I do want to just kind of stop here and see if there's any additional considerations that we should take into account when it comes into kind of the cost of compliance with these draft rules.
This is kind of a broad sweep, and I don't have all the calculating done in my head, but to increase the admin fee to a certain dollar amount, because it's kind of like creating a position in itself, and you'd have to look at the cost of employing a person, the total cost of employing a person, and calculate that into the admin fee. So 10% isn't going to be enough. You know, it's like 30% to hire a new person.
Yeah, Karen, are you talking about the administrative grant that will go to the small grant teams?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're asking for a person, an employee, to basically run this small grant program, you need to calculate the total cost of that person in the admin fee.
Yeah, I totally agree that the true cost for administering the small grant team should be encompassed within that grant that would be provided to the small grant team. Yeah. regardless of the indirect rate that is associated with that particular grant.
It's just going to be a lot of herding cats, which takes a lot of time.
Okay. Yep, agreed. Okay, any other thoughts on cost of compliance? Okay. So this is somewhat related, but when we do file a notice for rulemaking, we're also asked about the effects of the proposed rules on small businesses. And as defined by the relevant state statute, small businesses are not eligible for OEB grants, but we of course acknowledge that you all as OEB grantees contract with small businesses and will let us know if the proposed rule revisions would have a negative impact on the contractors that you work with. So I'll stop here and see if there's anything that you've seen or heard that you think would negatively affect small businesses that you work with. Okay. Not seeing anything there. Okay, appreciate that discussion. Next, we'll move over to the public comment portion of the meeting. So we had the written public comment from the Baker SWCDs. That was, I think, reflective of the previous iteration of the rules, which I think we addressed with the current iteration of the rules. And I also want to see if there is anyone here that wants to provide verbal comments. Cheryl, thank you. Saying no. Thanks for hanging around. So any other reflections on public comment that was received? Okay. Seeing none, let's talk a little bit about next steps then. So following this meeting, we will prepare our rulemaking notice with the Secretary of State's office. I think we'll probably look at getting it published in early April for public consumption. March is a little bit tight right now, so we're in good shape to get it, I think, out in April. So at the same time, we'll be notifying legislators and relevant natural resource committees and tribes of the intended rulemaking. So we expect there to be a formal public comment period to run through April, which will include a virtual public hearing. Most, if not all, of the comments that that are submitted come in as written rather than verbal these days. And we do get usually a fair amount of written comment associated with rule revisions that we're proposing. And once the comment period ends, we will be reviewing all the comments submitted, and we provide a response, including if that comment was, if that comment resulted in a change to the draft rules. So at that time, I think the RAC will, you can expect something from us about the comments that were received and if they resulted in any changes to the draft rules. So we'll be sure to send something out to y'all. It's, I think, really unlikely that we would request to bring the RAC back together for a meeting unless there's something really unforeseen and substantive changes. And we, at that point, would really need the RAC's input. So I'll stop there, see if there's any questions on that kind of comment period and what happens after that. Okay. And assuming we're on track then, after the comment period, OWEB staff will be bringing the final draft rules to the OWEB board in July for approval. And if approved, again, we expect the effective date of the rules to be July 1 of 2025. So that's it in a nutshell for next steps. See if there's any questions at all.
Nope, just want to say I really appreciate how OWEB does these RACs and really brings in all the folks who are on the ground doing the work and see how it fits. So I just really appreciate being asked to be a part of these, and good luck. Thank you guys.
Great. Well, thanks for saying that, Kelly. And it really goes right back at you all, because we cannot do this without you as applicants, grantees, and really appreciate the insights and candid feedback that this group has provided throughout this whole process. I mean, it's really it's an important process, and I hope you all had some, it brought value to you as well, as it does to us. So with that, I'll see if other OWEB staff have anything to add.
Just much gratitude for all that you do. Your jobs are hard, and we know that. With the many things you've got to do to get restoration on the ground. So we just really, really appreciate all of your work.
Okay, thanks, Eric and Kathy.
Yeah, I'll just pile on with the thanks. I really appreciate all your time and effort in this process. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. This was a great experience, and we will be in touch when we get the public comment period wrapped up and have any changes to the draft rules. But in the meantime, feel free to reach out if you have any questions or anything. And again, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you.
Good one.
Thank you.
Bye.